It's partly down to the fatigue of no new content, but also down to a few other reasons why I'm finding it hard to play Battlefield 1 at an enjoyable level. Now, when the game first came out, it was lots of new content, I was excited, I delved into it for a good number of hours, but unfortunately, just as things progress, it's more and more difficult to keep people coming back. And this isn't just a story of my own personal inclination with Battlefield 1, but I know this is something that a lot of other people have been feeling as well. Now, the game itself is in a really good state. There's not too much wrong with it in terms of the console versions. There are some minor glaring issues on the PC versions in terms of server browsers and party systems, but the overall consensus is that things are pretty smooth and things run well. But why is it exactly that none of us are feeling to come back to the game as much as perhaps other titles? Now, for me, it's pretty simple, and it's down to the reward system and the progression system which currently exists in Battlefield 1, which in my opinion is just not doing enough to make me play the game consistently. So there's two reasons why this is happening. The first is Battlefield 1's own progression system and how things work in Battlefield 1. And realistically, when you rank up a class rank or when you rank up an actual rank, or pretty much 90% of the time when you do anything in the game, it just doesn't really feel like you're accomplishing anything. It's quite unfortunate in the sense that once you unlock the weapons you want to unlock through your level 10 equipment, it just sort of all goes downhill from there because I'm not really playing for any particular reason. I'm not playing to get a certain level, I'm not playing to unlock a certain thing, and I'm not particularly playing to get skins either because the battle pack system is, by the looks of things, mostly random, and even skins alone wouldn't be enough to reward me to come back to the game. And there's a second reason why this is happening. And this is mostly down to how first-person shooters and shooters in general have suddenly changed in the past year or so. This is probably more a personal preference of mine, but it's definitely something that's worth observing, that shooters seem to be going in a much more competitive direction. And I don't mean competitive in terms of esports and ESL and all of these big companies making multi-million-dollar tournaments, but I'm talking more along the lines of just the average gamer is getting more and more involved with competitive gameplay. And I can kind of, make a representation for this because I've never really considered myself an uber competitive player in any sense. But lo and behold, when games like Overwatch and Rainbow Six Siege come out, I am grinding away on their ranked modes to try and get the highest possible rank. It just keeps me coming back. Now, admittedly not as much as Overwatch because, it's just a game that perhaps I've gone off of a little bit, but Rainbow Six Siege in particular, which you guys know I play consistently, I'm constantly there. I'm constantly playing that game because I want to be the best possible rank, which is Diamond, and I will continue to do that for every season that Rainbow Six releases. And this is something that has been a trend that progressively has just entered more and more commercial games. And as a result of it, Overwatch is a massive title these days, and Rainbow Six Siege gets around about 3 million players per day in any given month, which is pretty ridiculous. Now, I feel as though this is something that can be fixed and something that can be improved in order to get us coming back. And I think it's worth reflecting on previous Battlefield titles and why we played those games as much as we did. I feel like there are two primary reasons why previous Battlefields were so much more, replayable in terms of multiplayer. The first is that most previous Battlefields were much more challenging than Battlefield 1. Battlefield 1 is definitely a more casual shooter, and this is something that has just naturally happened over the course of the game's life cycle and how things are working out in terms of shooters as a whole. And it just isn't something I really enjoy. Like, casual shooters are something which, especially PC players, tend to stray away from because there's no challenge in getting kills. And I know that sounds ridiculous, and maybe even a little bit dickish of me kind of saying, oh, I find this game really easy. But like, in terms of shooting, in terms of tactics, there isn't any real heavy thought processes that I have to run through for me to actually get kills in the game. It's just not something that requires a lot of thinking. And I'm okay with that to a degree, but it doesn't make me have a challenge factor that makes me come back and think, yeah, I'm definitely going to outdo myself this time or do better than I did before. The second is lack of unlocks. Battlefield 1 is very limited in terms of how much content we have, in keeping with the World War I genre and how things worked out over there, but the problem with that is that there was no longer a case of, look at all of these assault rifles and weapons and attachments and camos and all these different things I can unlock for this single class. And that did keep you coming back to Battlefield to a degree. I can recall how difficult it was to unlock assault rifles in Battlefield 3. It took like a ridiculous 100,000 XP, maybe even more, just to get a level up to get an assault rifle, and people would just keep coming back in order to get those guns, and that was a reason why. Unfortunately, things like this just don't exist in our current present state of Battlefield 1, they probably won't as a result of the game's time frame. So there's a plausible solution that I'm posing here. Now, at the end of the Battlefield Hardline circle, they started putting in a ranking system. And I know lots of you are thinking, ugh, he's talking about Siege again. He's talking about shooters which are very different to Battlefield 1. But presently, we don't have a reason to come back and play Battlefield that much. And we probably won't until there is more content. And even when the content comes out, it's going to be a while before even more content comes out. And progressively, things will just keep dying down. And without the challenge factor of gameplay, it's just more a case of we need to introduce some kind of way to entice more hardcore shooter players. Because presently, unfortunately, this isn't the case. Hardcore shooter players are probably playing other titles. And that's no fault of Battlefield's own. I'm not doing the game any injustice. It's just more a case of that's how the game was designed, but Battlefield as a franchise has always been more geared toward hardcore shooters players, and perhaps it's time to start re-entering that back into the fold. So my suggestion is a ranking system, and I'm not talking like a 5v5, 10v10 ranking system where you like hardcore out. I'm talking about game per game, the just natural statistic engine of Battlefield, measuring things like your accuracy, your kills per minute, your score per minute, your objective captures, and then deducing an overall ranking score. And every game you win or lose will perhaps affect your ranking score, and you will obtain or lose different ranks. I feel like that's an easy system to implement, and I know that's perhaps a very short undersight of development, but you know, it's not something that hasn't been done before in a Battlefield title. It's not something that hasn't been done in a lot of other titles, and I think it can be done again, but even more so improved. So let me know what you think about this at the moment, guys. This is my major issue with Battlefield right now, and I want to hear your thoughts on the matter. It's been me, TheTacticalBrit. As always, cheers for watching, and I'll catch you again in another video.